Another genre I've just covered as well is the comedy, the sitcom. Obviously, the story of my life is going to be a rom-com, and we've got the animated comedy series, Art of Creation, which is going to be like our version of sort of South Park, Family Guy, Simpsons, all that sort of genre. Um, and I need a sitcom. And I've been thinking, obviously, I want it to be like Friends, Seinfeld, Robin's Nest, Three's Company, that kind of thing. So, what I'm going to do, see, Miss Jodine, how I had originally based her backstory, because bearing in mind in the animated series, once the characters in that series finish work, once they clock off, you'll be able to see behind the scenes, behind the scenes. So you don't just see behind the scenes of the recording their shows and doing their thing on the network, but the second they clock off and go through their portal gates and that to their actual lives, you'll get to see behind their lives as well. But Pearl and Doba are the only ones that are married. All the rest of them are single. Grim Rapper is single. Um, Amber Diamond single. She's the cosmic. She represents Indigenes. She's the cosmic weather girl and meteorologist. She predicts things that she's basically like the Axis Mundi. She represents Indigenes, so she's like a Polynesian blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl because she's based on my niece Amber, the one who's fighting for her life. The one I'm desperate to get home to see her. So she's a character that I created to honour my niece Amber, Amber Diamond. Her name is because she's April and that's her birthstone is Diamond. So I bought her a star and named it the Amber Diamond, and it's in the Cygnus constellation, little baby swan, and it's pointed right at the Star of Brihenus as well, which is shaped like a house. The Cepheus constellation where the Star of Brihenus is shaped like a house, and where she is sitting right under the house. So I said it's like she's coming home to me. So so she's going to have like the green stone. She's very sort of quiet and reserved. Her tagline is Amber Diamond, Cosmic Weather Girl and Meteorologist. Men learn because she's hot. She's going to look like Marilyn Monroe, but she's going to have olive skin, a Polynesian blonde, because she's mixed race. She's Māori and Western, so she's got the blonde hair and blue eyes, but the brown skin. That's how Amber Diamond is going to look. She's going to wear the greenstone. She's going to have bare feet a lot because us islanders, we're not really comfortable in shoes. And she's going to predict weather events and, all that sort of stuff. And she's Miss Jodine's flatmate. And they're kind of the opposites of each other because Amber Diamond is cosmic and Miss Jodine is underworld. But because Miss Jodine is also the granddaughter to the goddess Demeter, the goddess of the forest, and Persephone, her auntie, is what creates, the equinoxes and all of that. So she's got that earth tone in her. So they're the perfect roommates. They're the perfect balance of each other. I originally had it that they were also roommates in the apartment complex with familiars who were waiting to be introduced to the children that they were there to help guide them while the children learnt to master their magic, because you'll have 6 or 7 familiars throughout your life until the gods or your ancestors or whatever, until you've perfected your supernatural ability, and then you don't need the protection anymore. They watch over you instead of walk beside you, and your familiars will always have the highest position in your totem. So even though like Gold Dragon is like my highest actual totem, my familiars Ghibli and Kareem and all that, would sit above the gold dragon totem, because they were the ones who were chosen to be my actual soul guardians while I mastered my magic, my alchemy. Whereas the others sort of watched and observant, and I drew on them when I needed them. Like, they didn't have the access to me the way that my familiars did. So your familiar will always be the highest on the totem pole, because they had the up close personal role to play. They had the biggest role to play in your transition from, you know, out of the cocoon into the butterfly you were born to be. So I was going to do this thing of, like, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. You know how Miss Foster had the home for imaginary friends, that where the kids no longer believed in them and they were waiting to be, either the kid had made a mistake or they get to be rehomed in that. I loved that little animated series. It was so funny. It was just one of those little hidden gems that never got the respect it deserved for how brilliantly written it was, especially with its comedy. So I was thinking, okay, so we could have the comedy series, the sitcom, so that it's Miss Jodine and Amber living in like an apartment complex for all the singles who work at the network for the Ministry of Souls. So it would be like Grim Rappier, Amber Diamond, and Miss Jodine, but they live together. It would be Joseph B. Foote, our Sasquatch, our Bigfoot, our Yeti. He's the one that does Occult Private Eyes with Theo Lazarus. So they're all single, so they'd be all, and they work for the network, so they would live in the apartment complex. It's only for singles. But then the only thing I'm thinking is, would Grim Rappier lower himself? I mean, he would probably, if it was going to save him rent. I just don't know if he would be the sort of guy that would want to live in that complex or have his own bachelor pad. But I'm thinking it would be funny if maybe he was on the top of the apartment building and he makes out like it's the penthouse. He calls it the penthouse, but it's not. Like, have some sort of running gag where he talks about having the penthouse, but it's just that he has, the apartment manager's like former apartment or something, and he just calls it, because he's all about ego, as our Grim Rappier, because he's the news anchor and he's a ladies' man and all of that. So he would have his bachelor pad, but have like the running gag that he calls it the penthouse, and people think it's a penthouse, but it's just that he has the apartment on the top floor. So I originally had it that they lived with the familiars who were waiting to be given to their children, waiting to be assigned, because basically what it is they're kind of still in school. The familiars are still in school, learning to be familiars, learning to get acquainted with the child they're going to be assigned to. And it's kind of like that Avatar thing where once the child and the familiar connect, then the familiar goes off with the child and lives that life as that kid's familiar, whatever the pet is going to be for them or whatever, until it dies, and then it takes its place on the totem, and then the next familiar moves in, and you generally will just get a familiar every time it's time for you to get one, until you've mastered your ability to like harness your supernatural powers. So, but then it's like that was the original story. But they always say don't work with animals and children, because it's like, I don't know how to do this now, because I want it to be like a sitcom where it's real actors, where it's a real stage. There's so many because it's all based on the characters from the network and from the animated series. When you step into their world, you're stepping into their version of their world, which might be different from the art of creation, which is animated. So there's going to be animated, but when you're in Miss Jodine's world, she's live action. And her story is going to be, you will see her recording her Miss Jodine and friends and all of that. But a lot of these friends are also people that she lives with at the apartment complex, like um, Aurelius Fox, because he's single. So if you work for the network on any of their shows and you're single, you're allowed to move into this apartment complex, but you have to be single. And so there's this whole thing because Dober's obsessed with this storyline of is Miss Jodine having a secret relationship with Aurelius Fox? Because we'll write it in so that you'll see Miss Jodine standing on her balcony or something, and you'll just see Aurelius Fox's tail dart out into the bushes or something. So you don't know had he just been with her, and is he escaping and getting away, or did she catch him spying on her? Like, is he been skulking? Because that's what you call a family of, like a pack of foxes is called a skulk, because they're great at skulking. So yeah, and Dober Drexel was obsessed to find out. And you remember in Bewitched how she had that nosy neighbour Gladys, was it? And there was a whole kind of thing that you could play with Mr. Roper as well, with Three's Company, um, and even with Robin's Nest, with the Mr. and Mrs. Roper there, how Mrs. Roper was always sort of a bit nosy and glass to the wall sort of thing. Dober Drexel could totally be that in the sitcom of Miss Jodine's life. But obviously, because it's Miss Jodine and Amber, Jodine and Amber, it would be like Laverne and Shirley and all of that, but based around their apartment complex and all the people that they work with. So, there's all sorts of stories, especially because they're all single. So you're also going to be dealing with their fatalistic love lives and all of that. But I don't know what to do with the familiars, because there's so many ways that we can write comedy in with the familiars, but they keep saying don't work with animals and children. And with it being live action, I don't really like the idea of using puppet animals. We want to keep graphics to a minimum, and that just sounds a bit dumb. The actors would be having to talk to non-existent animals and blue screen it in later, so that's just dumb. Or whether to have real animals in that, but I don't want them all to be animals, because your familiars can be mythological creatures as well. If it's from your ancestral folklore, and that you can absolutely, I mean, I've got the Taniwha, that's like a mighty water dragon, and the Taniwha is one of my totems. So I don't know how to do it, whether to just leave the familiars out of it and have that be like a whole nother thing, like turn that into like a whole nother series and make it like a cartoon or something, and just focus on the apartment complex based on the lives of the two roommates, Amber and Jodine, or risk it for a biscuit. It's just, the more I think about having live animals on the set, and how would we get Taniwhas and little griffins and phoenixes and that in there, and bats, and so yeah, I'm thinking I might have to leave the familiars out and turn that into something new. Maybe they can have their own apartment. They can have their own apartment complex. Who knows? We'll just see. But that's going to be my sitcom. I just don't know what to call it yet. I'll have to have a think about that one. I don't know what to call it yet. There is a stand-up comedian who basically warms up the audience on the Loose Lips gossip panel, which is like our version of The View and Loose Women, and it's got all the girls, and it's basically just like a gossip panel, but it's not gossip if it's news. And there's celebrity gossip and all of that. So of course Miss Jodine in this elusive relationship with Marcus Aurelius is going to be talked about a lot because it really is Doba's obsession. She is determined to get to the bottom of whether they are in a relationship or not. And yeah, so it's going to come up on Loose Lips a lot, but the warm up, the one who warms up the crowd, CK, um, Carol Kringle, she's Santa's daughter, and she does stand up. So she's going to be in there a lot. She can live in the apartment as well. Um, but she works in the bakery at the North Pole. So at Christmas time and that, she goes and she bakes the cookies. That you have, and yeah, she uses her life as Santa's daughter and having to live with the reindeer who hang out with Grim Year as like the boys clique, the rich boys um, club sort of thing. She bases a lot of her stand up around her life as being the daughter of Santa and working at the North Pole and making Christmas cookies and all of that. She uses that in her stand up, so she could live there as well, because obviously all they have to do is open doors in their apartments or in their dressing rooms, and they can be in whatever world they want, because they're portals, because obviously the network is situated on the North Star and the Cepheus constellation, the Star of Brihenus. So they have access to all time up there. So they just open the door and just, like with wormholes, how quote unquote aliens do it with traveling between universes, and that they just consciously think the wormhole open and it opens. Well, that's what they do. I want to go home, they open the door and she opens the door to her home. I want to go to work, she opens the door and she's there. I want to go to the cafe, I want to go to the tavern. They just open the door and they're there. They just think it open and they're there. I call it the honeycomb system. But yeah, so it's basically traveling down little wormholes, little time portals through the mind of the star that's in the Cepheus constellation. So it's a North Star, so it can be seen anywhere in the world. Therefore, it sees all of the world, and that's the door. The doors that they open is like opening wormholes, portals through the eye of Brihenus, basically, because it's her world that they live in. It's her world that that they're a part of, and all her shows and her creations and all of that. So yeah, so that's the sitcom. And I said we need to do a drama next. Again, that could be my love life too. So I'm getting there. I have to get these all written out, because I know that the second I'm ready to open those doors, it's going to be all systems go. There's going to be a lot of countries making a lot of stuff all at once, so that by the time the server's built, we've got stuff there all ready to go. We've already got stuff piled on, and then we'll just keep adding as we go. So I need to have a lot of fingers and a lot of pies, because I've got to feed a lot of people's imaginations with it. And these are me just taking my first notes and that. So please bear in mind that names might change. Things might change dramatically by the time this all gets put pen to paper. So don't be attached to anything, because knowing me, things are and probably will change. Names, locations, titles, all of that sort of thing. So this is just me documenting my ideas now. I'm trying to entice people in to trust me with their kids, to trust me with their learning, to trust me with their journey, to trust me with their talent, to trust me with their investment, to let people trust my science and my faith and my word and my justice. Yeah. It's a test of faith for all of us, I guess.